It's our turn, episode number 47, Old West Themed Games. In this episode, Sarah and I welcome a new host to the show, and we discuss Old West Themed Games, and I interview Maury Brown from New World Magiscola about her new board game.
This is the Dice Tower Network, adding games to your wish list since 2005.
Hosting for this episode is generously provided by our fantastic patrons on patreon.com. As a thank you to our patrons, we post extra exclusive content just for them. If you'd like to help us out by pledging $1 per month or more, please visit patreon.com/OurTurnPodcast. Every dollar helps to keep this show going strong. Hi, and welcome back to Our Turn Women on Gaming. I'm Cathy Ford.
I'm Sarah Reed.
I'm Amanda Foster.
Who's the new person? Hi, Amanda.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Our Turn. We have invited Amanda to become a regular recurring host on the show.
Woo!
Amanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a game designer, a graphic designer, a board game enthusiast. I'm in Sacramento, downtown, the heart of downtown. So I was born in Napa, and I came out here to Sac State for college, and I haven't left. So really like it out in the Sacramento County. Yeah, a little bit about me. I said in my bio that I'm a bit of a tomboy. I grew up with my brother and all of his friends, and we just played Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, any kind of board game laying around. So games are just always kind of in my day since very young. Now I get to do it professionally. I was a graphic designer for a robotics company. So I did some mobile games, UI design, things like that, which was pretty cool. And now I'm working on a zombie card game that is still in the works, but it's called Dead End Block, and I'm the UI designer for that and artist. My brother actually does all the character sketches, which is really neat, so shout out to Carlos. But yeah, that's in the works, and so I really love games. Now I'm getting involved in making games, and now I'm on a podcast about games, so like, it's
well, we're thrilled
cool
to have you.
Yep, it all comes full circle.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
We're happy to have
Welcome. Absolutely. All right, so we usually start the show off by talking about what we've been playing lately. Don't worry, we're not going to baptize you by fire by making you go first. We'll have Sarah go first.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the games I've been really, really, really excited about and finally got is Sword and Sorcery. It's designed by Simone Romano, Nunzio Serras, who also, they pretty much go by Gremlin Project. It's kind of their, name. And the Sword and Sorcery is published in 2017, so just this year, by Ares Games, and it plays 1 to 5 players. So I really love co-ops. And the fantasy genre is just my favorite. I mean, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed Galaxy Defenders, which is their previous game, and it's sci-fi themed. It had some mechanical issues, but it was still enjoyable with fan-made tweaks. But they have definitely stepped up their game in terms of design and balance. I'm just so happy that Will got it for me for my birthday. Now, rather than go through how the game plays, which is way too complicated to shorten, as the rule book is over 50 pages long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over the key aspects on what makes this a must-have game for me. So first off, it scales well for low player counts. With Galaxy Defenders, there were points where you had to play a certain number of characters regardless of player count. Now, Sword and Sorcery works at 2 players, with each person, controlling 1 character. I do know solo play has you controlling 2 or more as you choose, but that does seem manageable. Second, they rolled over the amazing enemy AI system from Galaxy Defenders and made it so much better, for the most part. Enemies are now more sensitive to where the heroes are, which is very cool. And there's more variety to the enemies as some get randomly generated with skills. However, they have a targeting system that does not make a lot of sense. Enemies have a preferred hero target, which is fine, except that it takes precedent over targeting the nearest hero. Now, we've modified this that enemies always target the closest hero first, and then if there's a tie between heroes, then the preferred target, kicks in. Otherwise, you have a lot of enemies walking right past your heavily armored heroes to attack the thief or mage in the back. Yeah. Now, number 3, while I was initially sad that they took out the really cool progression of missions with a success, partial success, and failure outcomes, I am satisfied with how it's handled here. So you do have to replay missions if you fail them. However, you have a choice of whether to restart the mission with how your character was set up at the beginning of the mission or how they were when you failed. So this means, for the games that we played, when we'd gained levels and equipment that we liked but then failed, we could redo the mission at that slightly higher, more powered level. So it actually felt like we still made progress even though we had to replay it. Also, 4, no player elimination. I am so glad they figured this out. Nothing like playing a 2 to 3 hour long cooperative and suddenly you're out halfway through. It doesn't feel good.
That's no fun.
Yeah. I still have to say Sentinels of the Multiverse still does this best with the options that a so-called dead hero has. But anyways, here it's not bad. When a hero dies, they become a ghost soul, and they have a unique ghost shout. It's kind of like an attack. So it can be used against enemies. And then as a ghost, you can move around through walls, nobody can attack you, and you can go back to the altar and resurrect yourself, assuming you have soul points to do so. So you can come back into the fray.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 5, I really enjoy the story. I mean, this is one of the things that they had to give. They had to give that progression up of the missions to have a tighter story. It's just very cohesive. It's immersive. Again, some will say this reduces replayability, but that doesn't bother me because by the time I actually finish a campaign, I won't remember how the first mission went. So I'll be happy to replay it with new characters. And speaking of characters, that's my last point. The customization of the characters is just so cool. Most characters have 2 paths, law and chaos. I like that they did this instead of good and evil because, life's not just good and evil. But there is that lawful versus chaotic dichotomy that just is really cool. And then there are actually some characters that are truly neutral. So within that, even if your character is law or chaos, the skills range between those 3, and a character can choose skills that are aligned, their alignment and one away. So a truly neutral character can pick any skill, but a lawful character could choose a law or a neutral skill. So you still have a lot of choices on how you develop your character. On top of that, there's different fighting styles that dictate the equipment you can use. But even then, there's still lots of choices. So in the end, this has become my go-to miniature cooperative game. I gave it a solid 5 out of 5, and I so can't wait to keep playing my Dragon Flame character. I get to play Dragon. That's so cool.
That is neat. I hadn't heard of this game. Where did you first hear about it?
Kickstarter, of course.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, we backed Galaxy Defenders, which they did, I want to say back in 2015, maybe. And we just loved it because Galaxy Defenders kind of took the 90s sci-fi action hero type movies and actually kind of made fun of them. So, for example, you have Agent N and an Agent S instead of J and K from Men in Black.
Men in Black.
Right. And then you've got, there's so many that I don't even really, because I never really watched the Alien movies, but it has Sigourney Weaver's character and Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's what Alien, right?
Sigourney Weaver was Alien, and then Arnold Schwarzenegger was Terminator.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so I got some of the references, but what I really got was they got RoboCop in there. I mean, obviously they didn't call it RoboCop. So it's kind of playing homage as well as kind of satire or parody. So Galaxy Defenders was really, really awesome. Unfortunately, we didn't get too far with. We tried to do different gaming groups because that one was not well balanced for 2 players. So we kept trying to get our friends over, and it fell apart. As like most role playing system, when you play role playing games, it's hard to get the same group together. But now with Sword and Sorcery, Will and I can play it, so we're always here, so we can get through this one.
Yeah,
Nice.
I love it when a game plays 2-player well.
Yes. Especially something this immersive. So
Very cool. I love all the references to the classic movies. I mean, you said Sigourney Weaver and Terminator, and I wish that was one movie. That would be awesome. So I'm all for that.
Well, one of these days we'll have to have you over and play Galaxy Defenders, and you'll see how that is.
Yes, I can
Sure, I'd like
explain
to
all
too.
the references.
Yes, because I sure didn't get those right.
Yeah, I'd like to do that too. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, that'd be
Very
awesome.
cool. Very cool.
All right, the first game I'm going to talk about is called Farlight. Have either of you heard of Farlight?
No.
No.
I hadn't either, and then my friend Amy was all excited because I got Farlight, and I'm like, huh? But she came over this weekend, and hi, Amy. And Farlight is a space-themed game that was designed by Nick Sibicki, and the art was done by Dan May and Zheng Feng. I apologize if I mispronounced that. In this game, you each run a corporation based on a space station called Farlight, and it's in our solar system. The basis of this game is to build the best possible spaceship to complete missions, which include scientific discovery, delivering cargo, building other stations, and transporting colonists. In fact, the missions are kind of an anticlimactic part of the game. The real meat of the game is in getting the ship parts needed to undertake the most lucrative missions and win the game. You get paid in victory points when you complete a job that you've bid on. At its heart, Farlight is a blind bidding and tableau building game. Try and say that 3 times fast. Each of the ship parts have connectors on the edges of the cards. You start with a primary core that has connections on all 4 edges. When you acquire new parts to your ship, you have to be able to install them on your ship, and they only fit one way. So if you're out of port side connectors and you have a part with only a port side connector, then you're out of luck. You have to discard that part. You also have to have the right number of crew available to install some parts. One of the options is that you can bid on hiring crew during the bidding phase of the game. However, once you use crew to install something, they leave your ship. So the size of your crew is something that you have to take into account when you're bidding on things. And this is a blind bidding system. You have 5 little pieces numbered 1 through 4 or 0 through 4, and you can place those on what you want to bid on the board. There's cards with the different ship parts that do different things and can augment your ship in different ways. You could also bid on hiring crew, getting science tokens, which you need to complete missions, upgrading your engine, things like that. This was a fun game, and it was not difficult to learn. On our OTP 5-point scale, I give it a good solid 4. My friend Amy backed this on Kickstarter, and she was so excited when it arrived. And I don't blame her. The artwork on this is beautiful, and it only augments the experience. Probably the only thing I would change is that the science symbols were purple on a black background, and the bio symbols were green on a black background.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem for anyone with contrast issues. I would have liked it better if they were yellow or white.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the game played really well. I got trounced in the first game because I didn't fully comprehend how to build the ship in order to complete the missions that were presented during that game. We immediately played it again, and the second time around I felt much better about how to keep an eye on what missions were available and build my ship accordingly. I'm looking forward to the next time we get together and we can play Farlight again. It was a fun game.
Good, yeah. I hadn't heard of this, but I don't follow Game Salute much on Kickstarter. They don't have the best reputation. So I'm glad the game came out. They seem to be doing better lately about delivering products on time and complete. So I'm glad to hear that they've gotten their feet back under them. But yeah, this was one that totally flew under my radar.
Okay. All right, Amanda, it's your turn.
Okay, well, I have a small group of friends out in Napa when I go down to visit my parents and spend like a few days. And I bring a bunch of board games, and I kind of have like a friend group that we do maybe 3 to 6 hours of gaming. And then another friend group that's like, oh, they're done in an hour. You know, they're getting tired. So I try to do like some quicker games. So I have a Camel Up that's definitely a favorite. It's a card game kind of betting system. So it's, you know, pretty easy. It's a, let me see where all the information is. So title, Camel Up card game. Designer is Stefan Bogen. Artist is Dennis Lehausen. And publisher is Z-Man Games. So whenever I see Z-Man Games, I'm just thinking, like, is this pandemic? Like, are these camels, like, infected? Are they going to spread? I don't know. But it's just a silly little card game that's, again, easy to play. I played this with my niece and nephew, which is great because I'm always trying to find games to play with them because they're crazy hyper. And it's just like, sit down, let's play this game. The interesting thing about this is you're on a track system. So you lay your cards down in almost like a row. And before they're laid out, everyone kind of gets like a mystery hand. And you get to kind of decide how you want the deck to play out. So maybe you want more of white to win, that white camel. So you put down the white card and vice versa with all the other colors. So some people might be saying the same thing in their heads, and maybe white can win, and you have these cards to like bet on white. So it's like horse racing, but with cute little camels, and you know, and it doesn't take forever. So it's a pretty quick and easy game, and my friends love it. So family, friend approved. Definitely a favorite in our house. No infections, so that's good. Thank you, Z-Man Games. But yeah, I definitely recommend it for anyone that wants to kind of play a fun, fast game with friends and give the 3 to 4 hour Euro games a break.
So it's a good one to play after a heavy game.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we tend to sometimes work backwards. We'll play like a big game and then like, okay, let's lighten it up and play some fast ones. So yeah, I think it's probably like a 20 to 40 minute, anywhere between there. So it can be pretty quick, or if you are just trolling each other and like you can just keep adding more and more to the deck as you play. But it's very fun.
So on our 5-point scale, would you give this a 4?
A 7. Like, can I do
okay.
7?
So this is a buy it.
Yes,
go out and buy
it's a
this
buy
right
it.
now game.
It's a buy it.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen the Camel Up board game in stores, and I was recommended by a guy in Fairfield at, I think it's Outflank Games, and he was saying this is just one of his favorite games, and he recommends it, and I was just like, I don't have a lot of money right now, sorry, like, maybe next time. And then they came out with a card version, a card game. So I was like, hey, I got $15, and so I got that, and it's actually amazing. So I've heard great things about the board game, and I've heard even more amazing things about the shortened, card game version. So I definitely recommend it. 7 out of 5.
I had not heard that there was a card game for Camel Up. I'd only heard of the board game. So yeah, that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, they've started making card versions of everything. In fact, Castles of Burgundy now... okay, so there's the original Castles of Burgundy. Then there's Castles of Burgundy, the card game. Now there is Castles of Burgundy, the roll and write game, which they didn't call the roll and write game, but they called it the dice game. And then somebody said, wait a minute, isn't the original the dice game?
Uh-huh.
So anyways, soon, or I think there's some markets might have it now, but coming soon to the United States will be Castles of Burgundy, the dice game, which is roll and write, because that's the big craze.
What? Get out. Get out. Are you serious? Okay, that is awesome, because I love Castles of Burgundy.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I played it, it was a bit complicated, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I gave it a second try, and I really enjoyed it. And then I saw, another cute little mini card game version.
The card game version.
And I was just like, this is even better. I was playing it on the plane because it can fit on the little tray. It's portable. It's just a fun version. I think that does compare to this, where you kind of have a great game and then you have like a smaller, fun, portable version.
Right.
So I'm super excited to hear they have a dice version of Castles of Burgundy.
Wow.
Like a smaller dice version.
I just have to convince Will that we really need to own 3 versions of Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Nice.
All right, Sarah, what else have you been playing?
Well, speaking of smaller games, I played Honshu, which is a small card game. It's designed by Cathy Mioja, art by Osi Hekala and Jerry Kasanen, published by Renegade Games in 2016, plays 2 to 5 players in about 30 to 45 minutes. So the main focus of Honshu is map building, but it's all cards. So this is a very interesting one because a lot of map building games we've played are mostly tiles. So I was really curious to see how you could do that with cards. So thematically, players are lords and ladies seeking new lands to expand their influence and gain fortune, because that's what we do, right?
Absolutely.
So a game will last 12 rounds, and each round is divided into 2 phases. In the first phase, map cards are played using a trick-taking mechanism. I wouldn't call this a true trick-taking game, but every player has a hand of cards, and you're going to play a card out for both its number and then the land areas shown on the card. The player who played the highest value card gets to pick first from the cards that were played. So they might choose the one that they played because probably they played it knowing that they'd be at least satisfied with that card. But maybe if they played the highest card, they could pick a different card that had the land areas that they really wanted. So, like I said, it's that kind of trick-taking mechanism. And as soon as a player takes a card, they're going to add it to their personal map area. There's a couple of rules on how you can or can't add cards. Like you can overlap other cards, but you can't completely cover a card. And in the end, you're trying to score the most points for the different areas that you make. And whoever earns the most points at the end of the game is the winner. So, like I said, I was really intrigued by this concept. I love city building, and I thought this would be an interesting take on map making using cards instead of tiles, but I was a little worried it'd be too visual for Will, and sadly it was. There are 6 different pieces of land on each card, and these are just poker-sized cards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and on top of that, the way you can overlap cards, it was just too much for him to keep straight in his mind. Even I had trouble, although more with the game flow, I just had trouble managing the different areas of my map. So I didn't do a very good job at predicting when I should play certain cards, and I missed out on getting some key ones that Will got to first. So I wasn't able to grow my areas because it's not just about growing one type very big. You have to balance it and grow each of your different land types as best as you can. The good news for me is thankfully we got it on sale, so it didn't cost us too much to try it. I do give it a 3 out of 5. It's a well-designed game, just not for us.
Right. It has accessibility issues,
Yes.
it sounds like.
Yeah, but I have heard a lot of people say they really enjoy this game, and if you're looking for something map building, portable, but I wouldn't say small, because it's a map building. It's going to get large. We had to keep shifting it on our table, and we were just 2 of us. So you will need a large table to play it, but it is very portable because it's just a small deck of cards, and it plays quickly. So has a lot of great key things, plays 2 to 5, so you've got a good range. So I recommend it for anybody who doesn't have visual vision issues with that kind of game building.
Okay. I've heard of this one. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. If you don't mind, I'd like to borrow your copy at some point and give it a shot with my group.
Sure thing. Like I said, it's going to our trade pile if I can ever get some time to do a math trade or find someone locally to trade with. So yeah, I'll keep it aside for you because I don't think I'm going to get to trading anytime soon.
Okay. The next game that I want to talk about is called Millborn.
Yay!
And this is a game that I first heard about on the Dice Tower. I hadn't heard of it before. Millborn is a game that was designed by Edmond Dujardin and published in 1954. Asmodee is the current publisher of this French game. I was actually surprised to find that this game is still in print. You can get new copies through Amazon.com.
Yep.
The copy I was playing with at my friend Dwayne and Yuriko's house, hi Dwayne and Yuriko, was from the 1950s.
Wow.
Mark was remarking that this copy of this game was older than he was. And it was published in French. So this copy was in French, but it had English subtitles. But the artwork is such that it pretty much was self-explanatory. In Millborn, you're on road racing team. And the game plays 2 to 8 players in about 10 to 15 minutes. The object of the game is to score 5,000 points in successive hands of trips of 1,000 miles. Along the way, you can sabotage your opponents by throwing out stoplight cards, out of gas cards, engine trouble cards, or flat tires. They can counter with cards that correct those issues if they have them in hand. If they don't, then they have to keep drawing and discarding cards until they're able to fix the trouble and get moving again. This was a fun filler game that we played over at our friend's house, and we were all making jokes as we played cards on our own tableau and on each other's tableau. Mark kept making comments about my right foot that's made out of iron.
Lead foot.
I'm a little... Yeah, lead foot, that's it. I'm a little bit of a speed demon behind the wheel. Dwayne remembered playing this game as a kid with this copy. This is his parents' copy, yeah. And he pulled out the scoring sheets, and it was, he goes, this is my mom's handwriting, this is my dad's handwriting, and so yeah, they still had the original score sheet. I give this game a 5 because it's simple to learn, engaging, and one that I could easily introduce at work or at family gatherings. But it's also a good game for gamers. It's a great game for right after a big heavy game because it's just fun.
Yep.
And we played it twice in about 45 minutes. And
Nice.
yeah, had a great time with it. I'm actually eager to add this to my own collection. I found it on Amazon for less than $15.
Yeah, it
comes a little tin.
Aw.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get that one added to my collection sooner rather than later.
Yeah, this brings up the nostalgia for me because, this was one of my childhood games. My aunt taught it to me. I don't think I still have that copy, but I do have an old beat-up copy. As soon as my aunt taught it to me, I took it to school, and I remember playing it with my friends. I just remember playing the heck out of this game. I don't think I've played it at all. I mean, I don't even think I've taught it to Will, even though I have a copy. Now I'm going to have to pull it out. I'm going to have to teach it to Will if I haven't already. And then I'm taking it to work, too, because that sounds like a great idea, because I've got some more casual, new gamers in my coworker group, and I think this would be a good one. So I'm glad you played it.
It plays up to 8.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Have you ever played this one, Amanda?
No, I haven't. I'm actually just making a note right now to get a copy and try it out. Sounds like a fun little game. I'm always trying to find a game that I can play with friends and family. Family is in my parents separately and my niece and nephew. So it's how do I, find that perfect game that I can just kind of throw in my purse and break out, so we can play a 20-minute or 30-minute game. And it sounds like this is definitely going to be on my list of ones to get.
Yeah.
Mark and I like to flummox the wait staff at our local diner because we'll place our order and then they'll come back, to chat with us or see if we need more things to drink or whatever. And we're sitting there playing a game. And I guess people just don't do that.
No.
And I think this is one that we could definitely, stick in my purse and pull out to play while we're waiting for dinner to come.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, what else have you been playing, Amanda?
Okay, so my next game is How to Rob a Bank. And
Interesting.
And this is at Target. Target just got a slew of new games, which is really cool, but not good for all of the local, board game stores that I'm trying to keep in business. So, but Target has all these exclusive games that are between $15 and $25, so really reasonable. I think this was $19.99. So again, trying to find some smaller, quicker games to play because I tend to gravitate to, I want to play Agricola, so let me take 3 hours setting it up, and then we can get started. It's like, Basically, one player is the bank and controls the guards, while the other players are kind of a team of robbers. And you take turns with your action, like playing cards, and you have to keep your strategies secret. So you get kind of to decide a little bit first before you start the game, kind of like deck building. You kind of pass around cards and discard and things like that, and then you don't know what everyone's going to do, and then the game starts and you have maybe a card to move forward towards the vault, and someone else is the cop, and they're like going to just knock you out and things like that. So I think it's interesting. It's not one of my favorites. My friends, especially my brother, he's really good at these games that you can plan 3 or 5 moves ahead. He just has a really cool computer system in his head, and he's like, matrix code is happening and it's all figured out. Like, as soon as we open Clue, he already knows who won, who killed who and the where. And to me, I'm not good at that. I'm better at games that give you 1 or 2 choices in the moment versus like, all right, plan 5 moves, good luck. And it's just like, so I think for a lot of people that enjoy that, this is the game for you. Rob a Bank is great. There's a lot of strategy, planning your moves, planning ahead, being a cop or being the robbers, which is fun. There's actually tiles in the game. So, and the tiles move every time that you play, like a different game. So you lay the tiles out. So it's cool that there's, it's not going to be the same every time you play. Especially with the cards, you get to kind of pick and choose, and everyone's going to do that differently every game. So there's a lot of play to these games, which is nice. And I mean, my niece is going to play it differently than my parents or versus my friends. So, but I'm just going to be the one that gets, beaten by the cops every time because I did not plan my moves very well. But
maybe you need to play the bank.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'll just kind of watch and support everyone, be a cheerleader. No, I mean, I still enjoyed it. Yeah, I guess for me, I would give it a 3.
Okay.
That seems fair.
And I think my friends might give it more of like a 4 or 5 because they're better at that. So
it's interesting to see that the 1 versus many mechanic has come to Target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that you only think of seeing in hobby board games, and now it's in a mass market game. That's really interesting.
Yeah, Target has really, they pushed a lot last year for new games, but this year they just made a lot of exclusive deals. I'm not saying all the games are great,
right?
But the fact that they're pushing more games and they're there, I'm happy. So we'll have to see how it brings new people into the hobby.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen Pandemic at Target and Forbidden Island.
I saw Dominion.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
There's the Star Trek Catan at Target too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good stuff there now.
Cool. All right, so that's what we've been playing. You've heard us referring to and rating games by a rating scale. Here's how we're using this scale. 1, give me back the time I spent playing it. 2, has great potential as kindling. 3, decent with some bugs. 4, a good solid game. And 5, buy this now. All right, so now we're getting into the meat of the podcast, and our theme for today is Old West Themed Games.
Yeehaw!
Yeah, I was surprised that I don't actually own a whole bunch of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I was really digging through my board game collection for like, Old West.
Sarah did put out some questions on Facebook, and I put them out on Twitter and Board Game Geek Guild. And we did get some feedback, and we'll share that at the end of this segment. But I thought the feedback was really interesting, so I'm looking forward to getting to that. So these are games that take place in the American Old West, the U.S., the part of the U.S. that is now Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, Oregon.
Yeah.
Washington, Idaho, a lot of the Midwest states too. Usually these games will take place in what we would now call a ghost town.
Yeah.
Think, the 50s and 60s TV shows like The Big Valley or The Gunslinger or Ponderosa.
I could call my dad and he'd know. But I'm afraid I never watched any of those.
Right. Yeah. Cowboys, gunslingers, that kind of thing. Sheriffs all over the place. Mm-hmm. And deputies and outlaws. So we surveyed our collections and came up with our favorite Old West style games. So Sarah, why don't you go ahead and start?
All right. Well, I think a lot of people would agree with me that this one's a classic, and many are happy, including myself, that it was recently reprinted, and that's Carson City.
I know this is a favorite of yours. You've talked about it a couple of times on the show.
Yes, and I wasn't sure that it was going to be a favorite of mine because it has a really high amount of negative player interaction, which, as many people know, I am not fond of. However, my friend Gary just loves this game to death, and he encouraged us to back the Kickstarter. Well, not he, but because of his talking about it, Will and I decided to back the deluxe big box new version that they did. And I'm glad they did because there are some module expansion material that can reduce some of that negative player interaction and make it a little bit more strategic. So there's for example, when you get into a duel, the traditional way is you assign your cowboys guns, and then you roll the dice. And the dice are that random element. But you can take that random element out and everybody gets random little chits that have different numbers on the backside. And so it's still random in that you don't know exactly what your opponent is going to play. However, you know what you're going to play. So if it looks like a battle that you can't win, you can stick out your 0 chit because you can save your good ones for another battle. Or if you're like, oh yeah, I need this, I really think I can do it, you put out your 4 chit and you hope they don't have a 5.
Oh, this is sort of like blind bidding.
It kind of is. It's an interesting way take on fighting that it makes it a little more deterministic, but it's still unknown until you actually flip over those chits. So he knows I've got 5 guns and he may have 6 guns, but then the randomness is, okay, do I have a higher chit value than what he's going to play? So I should probably back up a little bit. For those who don't know, Carson City is a worker placement city building game, obviously with the Old West theme. The game is played in 4 rounds. Each round, players choose a character, and those characters give you specific advantages as well as a slight disadvantage. After that, players take turns placing their cowboys on action spaces or on the board with the whole goal of building up Carson City. Players can claim ground, build special buildings, houses, construct roads. And the thing there is, like I was talking about, is when several players are on the same space, you fight a duel. And the winner of the duel gets the space, while the loser will get his cowboy back, so it's not a complete loss. During play, money is used to construct on the board, and there are various ways to earn points based on what you've been able to develop. And then whoever earns the most points wins the game. As I have previously discussed, I give this game a 4.5 out of 5. It's solid, rich in theme, and while it has player conflict, it can handle it. The downside is it's a really long game, so it doesn't hit the table very often, but every time we've gotten it to the table, I've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to playing it again, especially since there's tons of expansion material we haven't even looked at.
Okay. All right. So this is one of your favorite longer games to get to the table, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Even having said that, I think we've only played it 3 times, but that's...
But you look forward to it.
But I look forward to it. There's a lot of games in my collection where I'm like, oh, I love that game. I've played it twice, but I love that game. So the downside of having too many board games is you don't get any one game played very often. But I know our friend Gary, he comes over. We try to get together with him every 3 or 4 months. It's kind of hard lately. I'm sure this will come back out on the table soon. So, yeah.
Excellent. Mm-hmm. Okay. The Old West themed game that I want to start off with is The Good, the Bad, the Munchkin.
Of course.
From Steve Jackson Games. You
Munchkin.
groaned. You don't like Munchkin, Amanda?
Oh, I know. Munchkin's great. It's just, it's been very hard to play with my group of friends because they're a little sensitive sometimes. So friendships can be broken with Munchkin. You have to be very careful who you play with.
I know Munchkin. I know Munchkin is one of those games that people either love it or they hate it.
Yep.
However, I think quite a lot of people like this game because Steve Jackson Games reports that 7 or 8 of their top 10 selling games are Munchkin games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're making pretty good bank on this.
For sure.
So maybe it's just a vocal minority that don't like the game.
Well, you got to know those diehard gamers are the most vocal, so.
Yeah, that's true. So in The Good, the Bad, and the Munchkin, you are a band of munchkins in the Old West that are fighting monsters like a level 2 hootenanny, which looks like an owl with the head of a bull.
Oh, boy.
It scares the horses and is +4 against anyone with a steed.
Mm.
If you lose against a level 2 hootenanny, you have to give your steed to the person on your left. There are 5 classes: cowboy, Indian, dude, outlaw, and cavalry. Unlike other implementation of Munchkin, there are no races, and I think that's probably a good decision. However, all of the art, including the Indians, depicts very fair-skinned people, which I thought was not a good decision.
No.
I think that could have been done with a bit more diversity. Each class card does have both male and female versions, and I'm happy to say that none of the female depictions was distastefully done.
That's good.
This is a game that I would not have a problem playing in mixed company. This is a game that pokes fun at Old West tropes from the 1950s and 60s TV shows that we discussed earlier. The powers, sidekicks, and equipment that you equip yourself with are funny, and the monsters that you go up with are cleverly devised. My favorite is a level 4 barbershop quartet. That's a monster that you go up against.
That's funny.
It reads, among them, they have all 4 classes, so no player can use any class abilities until this turn is over. The bad stuff, so what happens if you lose against a level 4 barbershop quartet, is if someone helped you in this combat, let him pick 3 cards from your hand. If nobody helped you, discard 3 cards.
Oof.
If you were the helper, pick 3 cards from the person who dragged you into this fight, then discard 3. Now, I named off 5 classes, but this particular card referenced 4. I have an expansion in my copy of this game, which added a class, but I don't remember which one. Since buying this game, Mark and I learned that if you combine this game of Munchkin with Star Munchkin, it becomes, wait for it, Munchkin Firefly.
Oh, of course. No wonder you like it so much.
So, Amanda, you may not know this, but Firefly is my all-time favorite game, and we've even had people I've interviewed give me a hard time about how much I like Firefly. And I seem to talk about it a lot on the show.
All these times we're going to have to count how many times you mention Firefly each episode, like a running joke there.
Needless to say, we do own Star Munchkin, and it's fun to play Firefly Munchkin with this game. I give this game a solid 4. It's a 5 if you really enjoy Munchkin. It's one of those that you should add to your collection if you're a big fan of Munchkin. If you're not a big fan of Munchkin, but you don't hate Munchkin, then I definitely give this game a 4.
I think we own this. I have no idea if we've ever actually played it. But we have a couple of versions of Munchkin that we've acquired over the years. So the thing is, Will and I like the concept of Munchkin. It's just not playable 2 players. And kind of like Amanda, it doesn't work with all groups.
Mark and I play a 2-player.
Yeah.
Right.
It's more fun with a bigger group. I actually took all of my Munchkin games to a game day one day, and I had about 8 people sit down to play Munchkin with me, and we just mixed all of them up.
Oh, yeah.
So we had the Good, the Bad, and the Munchkin. We had regular Munchkin. We had Super Munchkin. We had Star Munchkin. We had Munchkin Apocalypse. We had Munchkin Bites, and we just mixed everything up. And I kid you not, we had an 8-hour game of Munchkin.
I can believe it. That much mixed
Nobody
together.
complained. We were having so much fun. It was pretty epic. And it was a lot of fun. And all of a sudden, this guy goes, "Oh, I win." Because the object of any Munchkin game is to get to level 10. Mm-hmm. Unless you're playing Super Munchkin, then you're trying to get to level 20. So you're adding cards to your tableau to build up your levels and to build up the amount of weaponry and stuff that you can use to fight the monsters. And each time you beat a monster, you gain at least 1 level. If you lose against a monster, you can lose a level. And you can ask for people to help you fight monsters, but then you usually have to pay them in treasure for helping you. And they can also throw in cards to sabotage your efforts. They can make the monster bigger and stronger and more scary. But it's just such a fun game. Everybody who plays it should play it with the idea that this is a very tongue-in-cheek game.
Not
and I'm talking
to be
Munchkin in
taken
general.
seriously.
No, this none of the Munchkin games are to be taken seriously. This one in particular definitely don't. But it's a ton of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that is the Good, the Bad, the Munchkin.
Very cool.
What game do you bring to the table, Amanda?
Okay, so here's another Target exclusive. I've been going to Target quite a bit for my job, and I kind of pop over to the board game section, and I keep finding all these really cool small $15 board games, and it fit with our theme. So I recently played it, and it fits with the theme. So it's the Oregon Trail Hunt for Food.
I've heard of this one.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Is this the second one? Because
Yes.
it has the subtitle Hunt for Food, not the...
Yes.
Man, you guys are bringing back all sorts of nostalgia today.
This is based on an old-style video game, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the first video game I ever played was in the school computer lab in elementary school, and we played Oregon Trail.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I actually got to play, not to steal your thunder, but I got to play the original one. Didn't really care for it. So now I am very much looking forward to what you think about the Hunt for Food to see whether it's any better.
Okay, so just to let the listeners know a little bit about this, let's see, the publisher is Pressman Toy Corps, published 2017, and it's a Target exclusive. So I was wondering about like the first one that came out, and if you have to play these together. This is actually a standalone game, or you can play it with the original Oregon Trail game. So that's kind of cool that you have both options. I prefer this as a standalone, just because I like both of them, but this one didn't have my heart racing as much, because with the first one you're just like, I'm just gonna die next round, and I do. And so actually one of my friends died like his first turn, died of like dehydration or something, and he was out. And so that aspect I don't really like, because then they're just waiting while we awkwardly play without them, and it's just kind of like but the good thing about Hunt for Food that makes it different is it's not one linear, trail. It's not the Oregon Trail. You're kind of in the forest and you're hunting. So you lay, instead of the cards kind of like in one linear line, you're laying it almost like a matching game where you're doing like a 6x6 grid and shuffle all like 108 cards. And in those cards, there could be rabbits or bears or deer. And each of those have like different dice rolls that you need to do to kill and get the food. And so I like that kind of exploring you have with this one. Instead of a linear track, you kind of have more decision to move your little meeple dude kind of along the forest grid, and you might encounter a rock or a tree, and you kind of have to go around. You might just die of dysentery, or you might have to find an abandoned wagon and steal supplies, and you're all working together, which is good. I like that it's a cooperative game. You can screw your friends and be like, oh, you need medicine before the next card is out. Nah, screw you. You're gonna just sit out. Like, we need our medicine for ourselves, which we have done. You control your friends, or you can, be nice, I guess. But I enjoyed it. I like that you can play, like I said before, both Oregon Trails together. And how that works is, if you're doing the linear line, you can stop at any time on your turn and go hunt in the forest. So you have to have space to have the linear track and the forest kind of set up. So you need some good table space.
So you need a big table.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I would give this a 4.5.
Ooh.
Maybe I'm not understanding your scale. Maybe a 4.
Hey, if you enjoy it and you recommend people to get it, then that's a 4.5 for you.
Sure.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I recommend it. It's fun. It's only $15. So all these Target exclusive mini games are really fun. I think my niece and nephew would enjoy it. I think my parents could understand it. My friends love it. So it's just one of those games that you could be nice or you can be mean. So those are always cool, I think.
Yeah. Honestly, I think I'd like this one better only because of everything I played in those video games growing up. I hunted the most. And I think that's what most people did, because if you actually traveled the trail, you died. You most of the time just died.
Exactly.
And so the only part that you could really play over and over and over again without too much fear of dying was the hunting part. So I'm really glad they followed up the original card game with the hunting aspect, because that was the really, in my opinion, big part of the original Oregon Trail game.
Yes, yeah.
So, cool.
It's nice that there is still a little bit of fear when you're kind of exploring, but I noticed that the calamity cards, which are like the are you gonna die cards, are more in favor of you're going to die if this card gets drawn again. So if there's 2 dysenteries or if there's 2 thirsty cards or things like that. So you have time, which I appreciate more, because then it's like you have a countdown and there's fear in that, but it's not like, oh, you're dead, you're out, that's it. And it's like, oh, well, that's not fun. So yeah, I recommend it. It was a lot of fun. Again, only $15. So I think that's a steal.
Sure. All right. Sarah, what's up next for you?
All right, so one of the first, I don't think it's the first, I know it's not the first board game that it got me back into, or really into the hobby, because that was Dominion, but early on, we discovered, and I don't remember how, this game called Dark Horse, and it was very different to me, and I think it's a good intro game, what do you call it, gateway game, that's kind of a mix between Catan and Kingsburg, which are both very good, gateway games in and of themselves. So let me back up. So it's designed by Don Lloyd, published by Nightworks in 2012. Now, this was one of the first Kickstarter success stories for board games. I didn't back it. I'm not sure why. It just wasn't in my sphere, because I did actually start backing Kickstarters No, I guess it was later that I started backing Kickstarter. No, maybe it was it was either the end of 2011 or beginning of 2012. But either way, I didn't back the original Kickstarter, but I have backed other ones since then of this one. So anyways, it plays 2 to 4 players in about 90 minutes. And in Dark Horse, each player takes on the role of a unique character in charge of a small territory in the Old West. And players start the game with 1 city, 2 towns with the goal of growing out their territories to include additional towns, cities, railroad connections throughout the different areas that they control. And the object of the game is to collect the most victory points when the game ends from the various expansions made and your influence that you've gained. Players have to watch each other's progress because the game can end in a variety of different ways. So like I said before, mechanically it's mixed between Catan and Kingsburg. Each turn, players roll 2 colored dice and place those dice on specific actions on the game board, kind of like Kingsburg. And then those actions are activated in a certain order. And then players can expand to new areas, build the towns, the cities, the railroad tracks, and they have to build railroad tracks because that's how you connect your locations, because if you don't, then they're not worth points at the end of the game. And so that aspect is very similar to Catan. And like I said, we love this game. We played it a lot and enjoyed it a lot, but it hasn't hit the table in a while. It still remains in my collection, and I would have to say it's still in my heart because I just love it. It's one of the foundation games in creating who I am as a gamer. We just kind of overplayed it in our early days of not owning that many different games. But I still give Dark Horse a 4 out of 5, and I really need to play it again because he did a Kickstarter expansion, I think it was about a year or so ago, and I haven't actually played with the expansion material, so I need to see if that breathes new life into the game for us. But it's one that I really recommend even as the base game because it really has a smooth mix of mechanisms, and the theme is just, it's different because like we've talked about, there's not a lot of different Old West games. And this one's really solid.
Neat. That's one I haven't heard of.
Yeah, it's pretty under the radar for most people. Don does a lot of solid work. It's just he's still one of just kind of unknown indies or lesser known because I talked to him quite a bit. But yeah, I think for some people, they didn't like how the 2 different game mechanisms mixed together. But I personally liked it, so I don't know that it's going to get much more wide distribution. I actually don't know how many copies left of the base game that he has left, but definitely one to give a try at some point to see if you like it.
Okay. I don't think we could talk about the Old West without bringing up a game that is all about the shoot 'em up aspect of the theme. To that end, I present Flick 'em Up, designed by Gaëtan Beaugenot and Jean-Yves Maupertuis. I apologize if I did not pronounce that right. This is a dexterity game for 2 to 10 players. It's not very often that you find a game that will play so many. No. You divide into 2 teams and take turns trying to knock down the other team's figures by flicking discs at them. This game is dead simple to play and quite immersive once you get started. Before playing the game, you have to select a playing surface, a scenario from the scenario book, and choose up teams. One team are outlaws and the other team are the sheriff and deputies. The scenarios describe how to set up the town and how many rounds are played. You keep track of the rounds by moving the hand on the town clock, which I thought was kind of clever.
Yeah.
Once play begins, a player may select a cowboy figure and then take up to 2 actions. The actions are move, shoot, or take, leave, or exchange. Each player can take 1 action twice or select 2 different actions. For example, you can move and shoot, or move twice, or shoot twice. Each scenario has different objectives and some add different rules. For example, in the first scenario, you're restricted to the outside of the buildings in the scene. In subsequent scenarios, you can go into the buildings and take actions there. And in some scenarios, if there are figures from opposing teams in the same building, then a duel happens. You play the game alternating turns until the scenario goal is achieved, and it's different goals for each scenario. I find this to be a fun dexterity game, but like many dexterity games, I have a really hard time getting this to the table.
Yeah.
I've played the first scenario twice, but I'm keeping this on my game space of temporal insufficiency until I'm able to explore some more of the scenarios. So far, I give this game a 4, and I don't see it leaving my collection or, sadly, my game space of temporal insufficiency anytime soon.
So you're really going to stick with, what'd you say, game space of...
Temporal insufficiency.
Okay.
That's my shelf of unplayed games, yes.
Okay.
Mark and I are refusing to call it a shelf of shame.
Oh, no,
We just don't have the time to
not.
play it all.
Yep, that's pretty much us, too. I know Will came up with something for ours, and now for life of me, I can't remember what it was. But it was funny, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to Flick 'em Up. Dexterity games, well, yeah, those are really hard to get to the table. I personally have no interest in trying to be dexterous. My hand-eye coordination, if my hand-eye coordination is not good enough for a video game, I don't think it's going to work for a board game. And of course, with Will's vision,
yeah,
you'd be lucky if it doesn't hit somebody else in the eye.
It was funny when the last time we had this game on the table, one of the players announced at the beginning of the game that you don't want to flick them really hard because we want to keep the pieces on the table. And then she was the first one to flick it off the table. So, yeah, it is really easy to flick too hard. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to miss, but that's part of the fun. That's part of the fun of it. So you flick these discs to both move your characters, and so if you don't like where your character is, maybe your character is placed behind a cactus or something, because there's little cactuses that you put in the town. You can move your character, and then you flick a disc, and wherever that disc stops, that's where you put your character. And then you flick a different disc to shoot with. And if your bullet disc hits your target, then that person got hit and they lose a life point. If you missed or if it ricocheted, then it's a miss. And if I remember correctly, not only you have to hit, you have to knock it down in order for it to count as a hit. Otherwise, it just is kind of a graze and it doesn't count.
Wow, man.
So you do have
that sounds really hard.
Flick it just the right amount. It's not that hard. It really isn't. I can understand Will's vision issues being a problem with it, but Mark has some mobility issues. He has trouble standing for long lengths of time. He has trouble bending over a table. He played this game and really enjoyed it. So
that's good.
I think people just build up.
They're intimidated.
They're intimidated by it being a, quote, dexterity game.
Yeah.
You stand around the table, you joke, you laugh at each other's mistakes, just like with any other game.
That's true.
So we have a game day coming up at the end of the month, and I think I'm going to put this one in the bag to take. Yeah.
You should.
Yeah, it's a fun one. All right, Amanda, do you have another game to bring to us?
Yeah, so I dug through my pantry of board games to try to find some Western-themed ones, which I agree was actually a little hard. I'm finding like a lot of sci-fi stuff or just like city building, farming is really in there.
No.
Yeah, this is not a theme that has been overdone like zombies and Cthulhu.
So I'm just like, do I even have anything? But I found this small card game called Bandits, and it's a really quick, fun thing. Again, maybe I got this at Target like years ago. But yeah, that was kind of just in the back, like collecting dust. And so I was just like, I don't even think I ever had played this. So busted it out yesterday on the weekend and just kind of, played it. The description is hilarious. But first I'll say that the title's Bandits, designer is Wesley Charamella and Keith Millman. Artist is Jorge Baeza, and it's a Buffalo game and published in 2008. So I know that this has been in my closet for years. So I'm glad that I had an excuse to, take it out, play it, give it some fresh life. And I have to read the description. It's ridiculous, but it's bandits is a rootin' tootin' Wild West gold rush. Steal the most loot from your opponents and stash it in your hideout. Keep other gunslingers from getting at your stash by setting booby traps and sending out lawmen to head them off the pass. It's a fun, fast-paced, old-fashioned feud. Yeah! Just like, all right, that is perfect for our theme. So,
absolutely.
What I thought, I like that it's very quick. You get to kind of change your hand a lot instead of kind of get like 10,000 cards and one person is clearly winning. I thought it was evenly paced, which made it fun. The art, actually, I really enjoyed. I think that really helps the theme, especially with a quick game like this. Didn't feel like I was playing, abstract, like
there's
some
characters
actual
there.
like depth to it. Yeah, some rootin' tootin',
Cowboys.
Cool. Yeah, cowboys, and it's fun that you get to be both the good guys and the bad guys. So you have the defenders are, of course, the lawmen, and the outlaws are, the bad guys, and you use the lawmen to defend and the bad guys to kind of go steal the loot from your opponents in their hideout, which is cool because they have hideout cards that you get to kind of choose. So everyone has a different hideout, and I really enjoyed it. It was a silly game, really quick. The combat involves elements of bluffing to some degree too, so you can kind of fake your way into thinking like, oh hey, yeah, I have a great hand and I'm gonna take your stash, and so the other person, maybe uses a lot of defender cards, and you had like a bad hand and get to keep all their stuff. And so I like that element of bluffing because that's very, cowboy kind of draw kind of moment to it. So yeah, one thing I would change is there was only 2 booby trap cards in the whole deck. So, and it's 108 cards. So, come on, let's let's do more booby traps so you can kind of, I guess I'm more for pranking and trolling the opponent instead of, like playing nice. So more of those cards would have been more fun, but again, if I was playing with my niece and nephew, they would probably start to cry. like if I'm using booby traps every other turn and I'm stealing all their gold. Again, really fun, simple game. I forgot I even had it, but I'm really glad I got to bust it out and play it.
Cool. And what kind of a rating would you give it?
I'd give it a 4, I mean, for the simple game, I think that's fair. It plays in like 5 to 10 minutes, so
that's nice.
I like that. Definitely easy to just throw in your purse and play with some friends, so I definitely like that aspect of it.
Neat. Okay, Sarah, do you have any honorable mentions you want to bring up?
Yeah, there were other Old West themed games, and in fact, one I was trying to get to the table again and actually maybe talk about as a main topic, or main recently played. So maybe in a future episode is Circle the Wagons. I just recently got it. It's a little wallet game that is just a lot of fun. So what is that? 16 cards. If you're not familiar with the Wallet series, it's Button Shy Games. Does a great series of them, and the most recent one I got was Circle the Wagons. Really cute. Actually kind of a little like Honshu with how you're developing a map, but I won't go into that until I actually get to play it. Spurs is more of an experience type game. It's a lot of exploration. It's interesting. So one of these times I'm going to have to play it again and talk about it because it is very different kind of game. Kind of reminds me a little of like what Seventh Continent is trying to do with its experience of exploration, or I am forgetting the name, Tales of Arabian Nights. That's often referred to as more of an experience game. Mm-hmm. Deadwood is one that I have yet to really like. Will loves it, but we played it early on in my life as a gamer, and I really didn't like conflict then. I am better with it now, so he and I need to bring that to the table again to see how I do better with that now. Can't even remember what it's about other than I'm sure it's something about building up a Old West town and gunfights and things like that.
Have you tried Deadwood Reloaded?
No.
That's
Is that different?
It's a kind of a extendable card game.
I've heard of it.
It's the
yes.
non-Fantasy Flight version, living card game kind of thing.
Right.
Except it's not Fantasy Flight, so you can't call it living card game.
Living card game. Yeah, no, I've heard of that, and I have not yet had a chance to try that. And then Deadwood Studios USA. Originally, it was just Deadwood Studios from Cheap Ass Games. Then they actually did a nice production quality on Kickstarter, and I have that. And it's about making terrible Western movies.
It is.
It's
I've played that
hilarious.
one.
Oh, so much fun. And then lastly is Outlawed, which is a newer game, a lot of bluffing with different characters, a nice kind of those party style deduction bluffing style games. So haven't played that much either. So these are the ones where I was like, these are good, need to play them some more, and definitely recommend them.
I played Outlawed at Conquest Sac this last year. Yeah, and it was a fun game. I didn't purchase that one. That's another Green Couch game.
Right.
And I did purchase their Rocky Road a la mode. So
good.
Of those two games, I enjoyed that one more, but I did have a good time with Outlawed. Yeah. Amanda, do you have any honorable mentions?
I do. I really love Walnut Grove. I don't know if you guys have played it.
I totally forgot about Walnut Grove.
I know, right?
I've never heard of this game, and I love Little House on the Prairie.
This is one of my probably all-time favorite games, and I thought my all-time favorite would probably be more like Agricola, but then I found this, and it's kind of like Agricola meets Carcassonne, and it has kind of the laying down tiles aspect like Carcassonne, but it also has the resource management, building up your family, feeding them, which is always fun. But it's a great game. Definitely one of my all-time favorites. Maybe it's my Firefly,
Man, I've only played that a couple of times, and that's why I didn't remember it. But I remember having difficulty because there's something about going around the town. I had trouble with the timing aspects.
Okay.
So I need to play that again. I don't know why I didn't even think of that as Old West. I don't.
Right? Yeah, because no one's really wearing cowboy hats per se, but it's still very
it's still
the look. It's Oregon Traily, that kind of time.
Yeah,
but
that's all Old West.
But there's a track that you're going around, so there's almost an aspect of Monopoly because you do kind of pass go and get certain resources for passing that area, and then there is another area that you have to give resources to, so you have to kind of pay that debt.
Yeah.
But if you're not expecting that, I can see how that can really backfire. But an interesting thing about Walnut Grove is it's not as harsh as Agricola. So if you don't feed your family, it's not oh no, I'm super behind in the game. It's just kind of you get a little slap on the wrist and a -2 kind of token, which is super easy to redeem back, which is awesome. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see. It says 30 to 60 minutes, but I think it's more like a 40-minute game, which is awesome because I love Agricola, and I'm going to say that a lot, but I don't always have the time for it. So having something like Walnut Grove is cool because I also like Carcassonne.
Yeah.
And no one likes Monopoly, but everyone owns it. But there is that Monopoly aspect to it, which makes it kind of fun to go around the track. I think if you play it one more time, you might enjoy it more. I definitely see if you don't know what's coming and you don't expect it, it could really this isn't fun. But
any games that have a timing aspect to it are usually very difficult for me to fully get. So yes, we played it. I think we've only played it once, so it's one of those that I need to get back to the table again. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, this is, again, another timing one. And this one is too much strategic timing. The rob a bank is just a little too much for me. So I think that's why I would score it a little bit lower. Walnut Grove is a good balance because I know I can see what's coming. Rob a bank is I don't know what other people's hands are. So that also is I can't plan ahead for me and everyone else. That's too much pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recommend everyone just buy a copy of Walnut Grove. You don't even need to try it. It's just amazing. So that's another 7 out of 5.
Okay. Good.
Okay. My honorable mentions are Colt Express, which I have played and enjoyed. And I really like the setup of Colt Express. I like the 3D train. Yeah. And I like the fact that the box can store the 3D train. You don't have to take it apart. Yeah, I really enjoy that. And I enjoy programming games. So
Did you get the DeLorean?
No, I did not. I have not gotten any of the expansions for it yet.
Man, I don't have the game, but I got to admit, I was really tempted to get the DeLorean just to have a 3D, cardboard DeLorean. That's just so cool.
Yeah, no,
Anyway,
I heard about that, but I haven't gotten any of the expansions. And then 2 others that I want to mention, but I haven't actually played yet, but I'm looking forward to giving a try, are Tiny Epic Western, because they have bullet-shaped dice, from what I understand. And then
what?
They're bullet-shaped
dice?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are they D6s, Sarah?
I think so.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, they have to be, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one I am actually going to get to play tomorrow, and that is Great Western Trail.
Oh, cool. Can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, my friend Mike just pinged me today on Facebook Messenger and said, look what I got today. And he posted a picture of Great Western Trail. And I said, when can we play it? And he goes,
That's
tomorrow afternoon? We're there.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and then we did post some questions on Facebook and Board Game Geek Guild. Sarah, what kind of feedback did we get from listeners about Western games?
Okay, so favorite Western games. We had 2 people comment. David Orange gave us a list. His number 5 is Gunslinger from Avalon Hill. He called it thematic, realistic, and fiddly as heck. 4th is Bang. He says both the card and dice games. I've heard different.
I forgot about Bang.
Yeah, so did I. Just goes to show you can't think of everything. I've heard different things about both of them. Some people said it was the card game first, right? And then the dice game?
Yeah.
I've heard some people say the dice game replaces the card game for them, and some people still like the card game better. So it sounds like both are really fun.
I've never played Bang the card game, but I have played Bang the dice game. And the most memorable game that we played of that, we all got killed by the Indians.
Because that's right. I have actually played the dice. That's right. My friend brought it over. I did play the dice game.
If you roll the dice and it comes up with a green arrow, that's you're being attacked by Indians, and so you have to take the arrow tokens. And when you run out of arrow tokens in the game, then you have to score how much life you've lost from these arrow tokens. And in the very first turn, Mark got killed by the Indians.
Wow.
He kept rolling all these green arrows. And so because this game does have player elimination, he was out in the first round. And then the gal I was playing with, we went like one more round, and by the end of that round we were dead from Indian arrows.
The game won.
It did. It literally did. Yeah.
So for number 3, he also mentioned Tiny Epic Western. He says more bang, less bucks. Because it's, again, one of those, all the Tiny Epic games there's a lot in there for, not as much, not as expensive. Mm-hmm. 2 is Revolver by Stronghold Games. Really plays like a series of vignettes out of a Western movie. And of course, he had to mention number 1 is Doomtown, because that's the game he's working on.
Exactly.
And it's on Kickstarter.
Yep, it is.
And then Valerie Schrag mentions Flick 'em Up because you get to knock over rival cowboys or the scenery by
yes,
flicking
that's possible
discs.
too.
Yep. So sounds like that's one of her favorites too.
Cool. So Charlotte on Board Game Geek on our guild number 2600 said, overall, Western is not a theme that appeals to me very much. It's often very male-centric with few interesting female characters. Although, of course, you can create such characters within a Western setting if you try.
Yeah.
Western-themed games often seem to be focused on violence and player versus player conflict. I don't want to play games where women are limited to the role of being a big-chested barmaid or noble exotic Indian maiden. Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit here. Of course, not all Western games are like that.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think that conflict aspect is what keeps me from really enjoying a lot of Western themes. And that's why my 2 favorite are actually city building games.
Yeah.
Because you're building the towns in the Old West rather than purely focusing on the conflict aspects.
Right. Roger said, I didn't get into Colt Express at first, but the expansions made it much more interesting to me. I'm also not particularly a Western fan. I think it got so thoroughly done after World War II that any Western film or game now really needs to offer something new. Mike said, Roger and I had a brief discussion about Great Western Trail, and I had mentioned that I wondered how women were portrayed in Great Western Trail. And Mike answered me and said there are no women in Great Western Trail. The only, quote, people are worker tiles which you can buy to enhance your actions, engineer, cowboy, craftsman, each with his own male image. Carson City and its expansions have a number of female characters, although probably not 50-50.
No, it's not. But the fact that there are some women in Carson City is appreciated, considering, you're right, they're mostly male-oriented, unfortunately.
Kevin said, I'm more of a Euro guy, so these picks might not be that surprising. Carson City Big Box. I like worker placement, tiling, and character selection, so it kind of fires on all pistons for me. All of the extra characters and expansions that come with the game really kick it up a notch. Awesome overall package. And he also mentioned Olde West by the same designer as World's Fair 1893. This point salad game utilizes a Mancala-like mechanic with resource management and territory control. The replayability in this one is amazing. And my favorite part is that it is very clean and elegant design, absolutely zero rules exceptions.
Nice.
I like town building and resource management, like mining for gold, etc. Not the biggest fan of the gun-toting, rootin'-tootin', shoot-'em-up aspect of the theme. I would like to see a Western game that features a train aspect, but without it turning into a flat-out train game. I only want the train to be an element of the overall mechanics. Seems like designers don't know how to contain their train love in games these days. It's usually either all or nothing. And that kind of spawned a discussion about Colt Express.
Yeah.
So that was a good discussion. Jesse, our RPG contributor, said, the main reason I like them is the theme. I enjoy a good American Western, be it a game, book, or movie. It isn't my favorite theme, but is one that I enjoy revisiting from time to time. My favorites, only because I don't own many, are Colt Express. I mention it in the party games episode because it is light enough to teach to about anyone, and it can accommodate up to 6 players with the base game and 8 players with expansions. I didn't realize it expanded.
Wow.
Yeah. Then he goes on to talk about Tiny Epic Western, worker placement meets poker, 2 of my favorite game-related things. I like it at all player counts, including solo. And then games that he wants to play are Great Western Trail. This game looks amazing. I wish I had more friends who liked heavier games because this one hits a lot of points I like. Carson City. This looks like it has all the goodness of Tiny Epic Western, but makes it into a more involved game. And Shadows of Brimstone, City of the Ancients, Western-themed Cthulhu-esque dungeon crawler. Heck yes.
Wow.
And Flick 'em Up, I own it, but the shrink wrap is still on it. It competes with a lot of my games in my limited free time. Still, I want to try it. I might be more motivated to try it with a different theme like fantasy or horror. They did make a version of Flick 'em Up that is Dead of Winter. It's literally called Flick 'em Up, Dead of Winter. Yeah. Stephanie said, I don't like the Western theme at all. I believe the only game I played that would qualify is Colt Express, which I initially discounted because of the cover. Then I saw it being played, thought it looked interesting, and decided to try it. Probably the reason why I dislike the theme is because it's typically shoot 'em up with no female roles to speak of, except for maybe a saloon girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was the case with Bandits. There's the Belle Star Saloon Girl that you can be, or you can, there's like 4 or 5, cool lawmen, or, let's see, the bad guys, and then they balance out the Saloon Girl with this Clementine character, so at least she looks semi-normal, but still, I can see that's definitely an issue with Western games, unfortunately, because where's the girl lawmen? But I mean, I guess to be true to that time, there probably weren't very many. But I mean, do we really have to resort to that?
Yeah, but it's a game.
Go
and
on.
no game is ever going to be historically accurate.
Nope.
I mean, the balance of men to women in the Old West was like 10 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a game.
Yep.
It's not real.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be historically accurate in order to provide women.
Yeah.
There were saloon girls and prostitutes, but there were also gals that did cattle wrestling, and there were female outlaws. There was Annie Oakley and Calamity Jane. And if you look at television, there's, Carolyn and Laura Ingalls and Victoria Barkley from the Big Valley. I mentioned that when I was talking with Sarah Graybill in the last episode. There are all kinds of representations of strong women that can be depicted in these games. And I don't buy it needs to be historically accurate. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's not a history lesson.
Yeah.
It's a game.
Yeah. I mean, look at the art. It's a funny, cartoony game. So let's make some better characters.
Totally agree.
All right. So what is your opinion of Western games? If you haven't already commented in the Board Game Geek Guild on these particular questions, feel free to look up this episode on Board Game Geek or on Facebook and let us know what your opinion of Western games is. We'd love to hear some more from you.
Hey everyone, this is Sarah. If you're curious on how you can support the show, here are some ideas. If you'd like to support us financially, you can support us through Patreon at www.patreon.com/OurTurnPodcast. We've switched from pay per episode to pay per month. We also have a donation button on the site for anyone wanting to do a one-time donation. We have a lot of plans to improve our audio and expand the content we provide, but we need help to do so. However, we totally understand that not everyone has the funds to support us. Thankfully, there are many non-monetary and important ways to help us. Tell a friend about the show. Really, one of the best ways to support us is to spread the word to people you know. Commenting on our posts, either on the website, Facebook, Twitter, or the Board Game Geek Guild, are very helpful for us to know what listeners think and want from our show. If you think of anyone you'd like us to interview, please let us know. We'd also appreciate any shares of our posts on social media. Take pics of you playing games and post them to any of our social media avenues. We'd love to know what you're playing and maybe take a look at playing those games too. Please call our voicemail number at 916-426-2873 and leave a message or a show intro or promo. For example, you could say, "This is Sarah and it's our turn," or "This is Sarah and you're listening to Our Turn Women on Gaming." Of course, replace Sarah with your name. So there's many ways to support us, and we'd appreciate any and all of them. Thanks for listening.
Today for the interview, I am happy to welcome back to the show Maury Brown. She was a guest where we talked about her LARP, New World Magiscola, on episode 23. And then she came back as a guest host on episode 29, where we talked about relaxing games. And now she's back to tell us about a new project that she's got going on. Maury, welcome back to Our Turn.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a little while, so I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back. So can you remind people a little bit about what New World Magiscola is?
It's the magical universe that's taken over my life. It's a magical universe that we've written for North America that we are bringing to life through a variety of ways. We started out with LARP, and we do these 4-day, 3-night premium immersive role-play experiences where you go to wizard school, fulfill that dream and go to wizard school, but here in North America in a universe that's designed for North America. And then we expanded it this past summer to do a week-long summer camp version for 11 to 17-year-olds. And that went off well with those folks that wanted to had been dreaming of going to wizard school. And now we are moving into board games and tabletop games that are in this same universe.
How exciting.
It is exciting. It's quite a journey. Yes.
Now, is developing a board game different than developing a LARP?
Very much so. There's obviously a lot of logistics. So right now we have a board game called New World Magiscola House Rivalry that is pretty much, our idea is to translate the wizard school experience into a board game. Because in looking around, there are a lot of board games where you can be a wizard, right? I mean, obviously starting as far back as Dungeons and Dragons, where you get to be a wizard and you get to wield magic and you get to fight monsters. But there wasn't really a game where you got to go to wizard school, which is actually different, right? I mean, you do get the chance to be a wizard, but it's got that idea of training to be a wizard in the school element. So the idea for the game was to sort of take the experience of going to wizard school and mechanically turn it into a board game. And so we have things like what you do is you enroll in classes. Now, they're magical classes, right? They're herbology and parabotany, and these are the classes that we actually have live at New World Magiscola. And so there's 13 classes there, and then a few bonus ones that we haven't had live at New World Magiscola, like the famous merfolk weaving arts, right? Or and so those, we haven't figured out how to do an underwater basket weaving class live yet, but so we thought we'd put that in the board game. And so you take your classes, and then you study is another one of the actions that you can do, because the higher your grade is, the more house points you get. And then the third action you can do is conjure, which is to use magic, to use spells, potions, or artifacts to sort of speed up your progress in your class or improve your grade, or to hex your rivals so that their grade goes down or their time goes up, because you are trying to win the first house cup. And so it was very interesting translating it to the board game. There's lots of logistics that are involved in LARP, right? You have to get the location, you have to have insurance, you have to set up the time, you have to figure out how people will move, whereas with the board game, it was all the physical components, like what kind of card stock, and how much does the cubes cost, and where do I have it produced, and how do I distribute this thing? And so it was a big learning curve. Wow, cool. Yeah, I'm glad we did it, and I've learned a ton, but it is it is not the same.
It's a different animal altogether.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, so it's live on Kickstarter. It's going live.
It went live on September 18th, and we had a good run out the gate. With we have about 54% of our of our total funded in the first 3 days, which is pretty good. That usually bodes well for a campaign succeeding. Our goal is $32,500, which is higher than some board games. But this game has a fair amount of parts to it. It has a lot of cards. It has 120 cards. They're tarot-sized cards. It has grade cubes. It has time cubes. It has player mats. And it has a scoreboard. And we have compensated our artists well and appropriately, as well as our graphic designers. And so the amount you see there is sort of real. Like sometimes Kickstarters will put a lower amount that's easier to hit, that then can rely on donated artwork or on other things, or it doesn't necessarily reflect the costs of producing the game. And so we wanted to be transparent with, this is what it takes, for us to get to the minimum quantity of producing a 500 units of the game and actually compensate our artists and graphic designers. And so we're hopeful that the 32.5 will make, given that we have almost $18,000 after the 4 days. But we would appreciate if you check it out and take a look at the project.
Excellent. We will, of course, have a link to it in the show notes. So how long is your Kickstarter going for?
It goes till mid-October, October 18th. So 30 days.
Okay.
Yeah. But the game's been in development for a while. We've been playtesting it rigorously over the past year. And that's another thing that can happen with board games is that, if you have just your friends playtest the game, they're likely to say they'll give you a fairly honest opinion, but they're also your friends. And so having a lot of different people and a lot of different ages and a lot of different levels of experience gaming, and then even, of course, the blind play tests where you just hand somebody the game and see if they can figure out how to play it from the rules you've written. Those are all really important to make sure you have a good game. And so I can't tell you how much the game has changed in the year that we've been playtesting it. We took it to Metatopia, we took it to Arisia, we took it to Kubla Khan and Washington and RavenCon and Dreamation and A Gathering of Friends and Gen Con, just to get, we've had over 1,000 people, play test this game, and it has changed a lot in terms of both the card design. We redesigned the cards to make them easier to read. We had people who were colorblind take a look at the cards to make sure that the design that we used allowed them to differentiate between the cards. We streamlined the game. Originally, the game had 5 actions, and now it has 3. And we took money out of the game altogether because we wanted to focus on one currency, which is house points. And just huge changes as we listened to the feedback that we got.
It sounds like a Herculean effort.
It really is. Someone asked me if I wanted to be on a panel upcoming at PAX Unplugged about, so do you really want to be a board games designer or publisher? Right? And I was like, you're asking me that now? I'm like, I have a lot of things I could say about it.
Sounds like you'd be the perfect panelist.
I'll be blunt. I'll tell you all the things, but I'm enjoying it. But you definitely don't want to do it if you don't like stress or high challenge, right?
Right, exactly. My co-host Sarah has said that the blind play testing can be the most nerve-wracking. Is that true for you too?
It really is, especially if you're there. Like I would, like if you're trying to sit in the corner and watch a blind play test, which is important because you're seeing live what they're having trouble with. But like you have to staple your mouth shut, because you can't intervene because the whole point is for them to try to translate off of the page what you're supposed to do. And you think it's really an art, rules writing. I'm lucky in that I'm trained as a technical writer, and writing directions, right, and step-by-step instructions is something I've done for through technical writing, and
right.
That's sort of what rules are. So you have to anticipate the kinds of questions that people are going to have and be really specific with your language. But the thing about board gamers, which I love and hate, right, is they are loophole finders, right? I mean, because that's how you figure out strategies. So when they sit down with your rules, it's like, if it doesn't say it, then that means you can do it, right? And so they will come up with something that you just have never thought of. They're like, just to give an example, I was playing Affliction with my adult son, and the game has you putting, you arrest people. It's set in Salem witch trials, 1692. And the game has you arresting people and putting them in your jail, and then also getting people to your side to be on your team to accuse other people. And so the game instructs you that at the end you get a bonus if you have a certain person in your jail, and each person has a different person a different character that they can have in their jail. And so I arrested somebody and had them in my jail, and Austin wanted that person in his jail, right? And so he was like, I'm going to arrest her out of your jail. And I'm like, she's already in jail. And we're like looking in the rules, and the rules don't say you can't arrest somebody out of somebody else's jail, right? Like they don't say it. And so Austin's like, well, I should be able to do it. And I'm like, well, this seems silly because if they're already in jail, and he's like, privatized jails, man. This is my jail, not your jail. And I'm like, you can't be tried twice for the same crime. And he's like, maybe it's a new crime. And so that's the kind of stuff that you can see when you see really creative and strategic board gamers blind play testing your game, is that they start to see what's allowed and what they push at it,
Mm-hmm.
And that it's very humbling because you think everything is totally clear when you give it to them. And then you watch them just go, oh, well, I don't know. Well, what makes you? And then they talk about which way they would interpret it. So it's very informative, but it's very humbling. And sitting there being quiet while it's going on is just excruciating.
So tell me a little bit about the different pledge levels in the Kickstarter. I'm looking at it right now, and I see you get the base game for $49. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. And we've subsidized the shipping. We were able to get a really good distributor deal. That's a whole nother conversation, figuring out how to get a distributor deal. But so shipping is just $5 to the UK and to the United States, and then just $10. No, wait, am I getting it wrong? It's $5 to the US. This changed so many times.
And then $10 to the UK and Canada.
Yes, and then $15 for the EU, Australia, and New Zealand. And so that $49 with those shipping charges, that's it. There's no hidden charges. There's no gotcha at the end of the campaign. That also includes customs charges and VAT charges. So because of the way we're distributing the game, our international buyers won't get hit with surprise customs and duty charges or that 20% VAT that happens in Europe. So that took a lot of doing. Yeah, that took a lot of doing and analysis to get that figured out. But yeah, $49, which is a fairly typical price for a game with as many components. It comes in the same size box as Dominion.
Okay.
And so it'll fit nicely on your shelf if you have Dominion or Dixit. And then we have a Creatures expansion that is 25 additional cards. In the Magimundi, we have many, many magical creatures and cryptids that are based on North American folklore or just have been created by our imaginative minds. And we had a book about that, the Compendium of North American Cryptids and Magical Creatures. And so 25 of those creatures, which include the jackalope and some mermaids and the Wendigo, those sorts of things appear, and you can add those to your game. And so 22 of those are in your Conjure deck and 3 are in your Magiscola deck, and add different kinds of play and strategy to your game. So for $65, you get both the base House Rivalry game and these Creatures expansion. And they'll ship together and you'll get them all at once. And
neat. That's neat.
Yeah.
You've already got an expansion for it.
It's nice, and we play tested the expansion too, and so we had a couple of creatures that were just too devastating. We were like, we'll save those for the Pathfinder stuff, like that they, nobody wants something to destroy their game. I mean, it's
right.
Nice, and the creatures do. Some of the creatures obviously help you too, right? They're your buddies. The jackalope actually helps you. If you have the jackalope, you put them with you, and if somebody hexes you, the jackalope races at them and gores them in the shins. And they lose 2 house points for hexing you. So we also have the $74 pledge, which gets you the House Rivalry plus the Wolf by Any Other Name party game that we released earlier this year, which is a LARP in a box where you're in detention on the night of the full moon at Magiscola, and some of the people in the room are werewolves, and the moon's going to rise. And so you have to figure out what you're going to do at moonrise. And their ingredients, every player has certain potion ingredients that they sort of had in their pocket all around the room. And if the werewolves can find the 2 ingredients needed to make the lunar shield potion, then they can avoid changing. But spoiler alert, there's always going to be one werewolf who won't be able to get that potion, so you're going to have to do something else. So
okay.
That's been a fun game that we've had at quite a few cons earlier this year, and that people have been playing at home. So if you didn't get a chance to get that game earlier in the year, you can get it and add it on to House Rivalry.
Very cool. And I'm looking at the artwork on the webpage here, and it looks great.
Thank you so much.
You've got a good mix of the genders in here and some diversity in ethnicity as well. That's always really cool to see. And yeah, this artwork looks beautiful. So anything else you want to add about this?
Yeah, well, what you're saying was actually one of our design goals. Is Magiscola and the Magimundi is a universe that's been written to be very inclusive and also to sort of be very forward with North America's sort of colonial history. And so as we did the character cards, you're right, we wanted to make sure that there was diversity of body size, diversity of gender, diversity of ethnicities, diversity even of the names too, right? So you see Martín Spinoza, who is clearly Hispanic, and Soledad Reyes, and then Jack Slager uses they pronouns, non-gendered name. Those things were very important to us. And the same with our house founders in Magiscola is that you'll see two of our house founders are women of color, and we have a white man, Etienne Brule, and a British woman, Virginia Dare, and then Callie Sala, who's was a member of Indigenous North American tribe and was one of their two spirits, so a non-binary house founder. So we did allow people to purchase your likeness as a character. So the 6 cards that you see on the Kickstarter are the 6 base characters. And then other people can purchase the ability to become a character, which means our character artist, Dagmara, will take photos of you and draw you as a character. And then we'll work with you to choose your pet, your familiar, and to choose your special ability, because this game uses variable player powers. So which character you choose and which house you choose affects how you play the game, affects your strategies, affects these, sort of special abilities that you have to help yourself or hex your rivals. And so that was a really popular award level. I think we're going to add 3 more of those on there because it sold out really quickly.
Yeah, I see that.
But since we were allowing anyone from the public to choose those, then we weren't going to get a chance to say, we wouldn't get a chance to know what diversity we would have. So we may have ended up with all of those being selected by people of a certain gender or people of a certain ethnicity. And so that's why we wanted our base characters to ensure we already had some before we opened it up to the public.
Okay.
There, we were really lucky to find Dagmara. She is a Polish artist who was referred to us by our graphic designer, Dan Blanchett. And she's the one who's done the characters, and she's done the box art as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful art. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, she's really talented.
All right. So again, this goes through October 18th, and you can get the base game for $59 for pledge of
base game for $49. Mm-hmm.
Oh, for $49, that's right. And then $65 or more will get you the expansion.
Correct.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Maury, and good luck with the Kickstarter. And I hope you'll come back on the show again sometime soon. I would love to. Thanks so much for the conversation and for helping get the word out about it. Oh, I'm more than happy to help.
The Dice Tower Network is a proud supporter of the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund. The board gaming community is kind and generous, and this fund was created to provide financial assistance to members of the board gaming community in their time of need. If your game is turned upside down and you need assistance, please visit jackvassell.org/apply. Find out how we can help.
Okay, so now we are coming to the end of this episode, and it's time to start winding things down and looking ahead to what we're going to be doing over the next week or two. Sarah, what have you got on your plate?
Lego!
Yay!
Lots of Lego. So, for those who may or may not know, Lego has released a new largest set ever. So, previously, the largest set ever made was the Star Wars the Star Wars Death Star, and it was $500. And,
wow.
Yeah, and it was a big, giant play set. So it had like 18 minifigures, and that might not be exactly it, but it was a lot of minifigures. It was a big play set. And they've been doing these Ultimate Collector series of the different ships, and think like models, like really detailed models made for adults. And fans have been asking them to redo the Millennium Falcon, which they had done several years ago. I mean, like, I don't even remember when. It might have been I'm not good. See, I'm not as big into Star Wars, so we don't usually get a lot of them. But anyways, fans have been wanting to do the Millennium Falcon again, and Disney now owns or has a license for Star Wars and stuff. So they worked with Lego to make a new Ultimate Collector series, Millennium Falcon, $800.
Wow.
Yeah, I do not remember the piece count at the moment, but is a giant, giant box. And I am very happy to say Will got a copy to review.
Wow.
Yep. So for those who don't know, Will writes for a blog called The Brick Blogger, and he's been doing it for years, and he doesn't get paid in money. He gets paid in Lego. And most of the time, he doesn't get to choose what it is he gets. Lego calls up the main admin, says, hey, we've got these sets coming your way. Who's going to get them? And so she takes some, and then Will takes some, and there's another contributor who also does a lot of writing. And so these three people divvy up the sets that Lego sends. And Will had expressed interest that if Lego should mention or say that they were going to send a Millennium Falcon, that he would really, really like it. And they sent one. So,
Oh, fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, very excited because that was not something we were going to buy anytime soon.
Wow, yeah.
So we started building on it. It's been about a week now. So for those who don't know, Lego numbers the bags. And so each series or sets of bags, so you got 4 bags that say 1. You open all of those, sort them, and then you go through everything in the instruction manual that, says for phase 1. And then you finish that, and then you open all the bags that say 2. This one has 17 phases. And
wow.
Yeah, each one will have 4 to 5 bags of Lego. So I'll share some pictures. It's massive. And so we have to build it because Will needs to write about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Very cool.
Yeah, so we've been trying to do that over the evenings and balancing everything. So we haven't been playing as many games, but that's okay because that's pretty cool. Like I said, we have 2 hobbies, Lego and board games, and we try to balance them as best as we can. And then the other big Lego thing is by the time this episode airs, it will already have happened, but Brickfest is September, or will be, whatever, 23rd, Saturday 23rd and 24th. And Will and I are part of the local Lego club here in Sacramento called the Sacramento Brick Builders, and we are going to be doing a display at Brickfest at the convention center. So really looking forward, hoping it gives us some good exposure. Will's built, ironically, a convention center. And we're populating it to look like a Comic-Con style convention going on in this little mini convention center that we're then going to display in the Sacramento Convention Center. It's really cool.
Neat.
So
Nice.
Finally, after all that's over, at the end of September on the 30th or so, we're finally going to get back into some board games, have Gary and our friend JT come over, and we call them our heavy hitters because they come over and we play one big massive game and then maybe a small game and then that's it. Because they love heavy Euros and heavy strategy games like us, and I believe JT promised he'd bring First Martians, so I'm hoping because that sounds really cool.
That's exciting.
Yep.
Very cool. Amanda, what have you got on your plate coming up?
Not as much.
No one's as
should've
crazy
gone
as me.
first. But thanks for that. I just started a new job, so I've been very tired and looking forward to nothing, which has been nice. So when I get home, I just want to play the new Nintendo Switch that I just got.
Nice.
And kind of relax. I've been into the Bomberman game for it. What else do we have? Let's see. We have a few download ones. Snipper Clips is a pretty cool co-op game where you're these little, almost like paper people, and you have to cut each other out. So when you overlap, you cut a shape out. So there's different puzzles outlined, and cooperatively you have to kind of create those shapes, and then you can move to the next level. So it's very interesting. I love anything Nintendo, so I'm always excited about their new and next big console. So I finally just got a Switch last weekend. So
that's
now
awesome.
that things are kind of, I'm getting the hang of my new job, I'm able to kind of get free time to just relax and play that. And I'm also trying to visit my brother who lives in San Diego. And every time that I do, because San Diego is so big, it's like the Sacramento on steroids size, that he tells me oh, there's this new comic book shop, or oh, there's a new board game shop. And I was on the phone with him maybe last weekend, and he had just mentioned a new board game shop just opened up, and you got to come down and check it out. And so I'm trying to see when's a good weekend, hopefully sooner than later, because the beach is great and I get to see my brother, and the shops down there, it's time to loot, so need some fresh stuff. But
awesome.
that's all that's on tap for me.
Nice. Well, I mentioned earlier that tomorrow I get to go and check out Great Western Trail. My friend Mike just got his copy, so we're excited about that. And then this Saturday, my friend Dave Mitchell, hi Dave, he is holding one of his Mega Civilization game days. And we are going.
Nice.
So that is always a fun day. Rules explanation starts at 9:30 a.m.
Whoa.
And in the past, I've played this game twice at his house. In the past, we have always called it at about 11 o'clock at night.
Oof.
Wow.
We've not yet finished a game. So I'm hoping this time, it doesn't look like there's going to be as many people this time. So I'm hoping maybe we can finish this game this time.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And I like the groups of people that I'm playing with. So
our thoughts and prayers are with you to finish that game. We'll all be thinking about you.
I have absolutely no illusion that I'm going to win. I just would like to see it through to the end. Yeah. So, like I said, it looks like it's going to be a little bit of a smaller group. Last time Dave was trying to max out the game, which this game will play 18 people.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And yeah, this is, his starting at history. And if you have 18 people, it goes all the way, I think, to China. It's Europe and Asia combined. Wow. But I think with fewer people, I think you're just stuck in the Mediterranean, which is fine. It's fine. There are lots of civilizations in the Mediterranean. So, I'm really looking forward to getting in a game of Mega Civilization. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Anyway. Yep. Anything else going on?
Oh,
hopefully not for me. Less is more.
Yeah. Get some rest and relaxation.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. All right.
R&R.
So,
Sarah, how can people get a hold of you online if they want to talk to you?
I'm mostly on Twitter at EurogamerGirl. You can find me there most of the time. I mean, if I'm not there right away, I'll respond as soon as I can. I also help run the Facebook page for Our Turn podcast. So anytime you make comments there, I'm the one usually responding. And I still can't quite seem to get back into the groove on Board Game Geek, but if you want to try sending me a message there, I'm Silva Shadow, SilvaShado.
Excellent. And Amanda, how can people get a hold of you online?
They can shoot me an email, just because with my new job, I have not been on social media just because it's been so busy. But amdesignscreative@gmail.com if they want to send me an email. I know that sounds a bit like slow mail, but for right now, I'm always checking my email for my job, so that would probably be the best way.
Okay. And then I am the person behind the Our Turn podcast Twitter account. And I'm also the guildmaster on our guild on Board Game Geek, which is guild number 2600. And you can, of course, find links to all of this information on our show notes. The show notes for this episode are at ourturnpodcast.com/episode 47. So until next time, and on behalf of the entire Our Turn podcast crew, that was our turn.
Now it's yours.
Thank you for listening. This episode was recorded on September 18th, 2017, and is written and produced by Cathy Ford, Sarah Reed, and Amanda Foster, with assistance from Maury Brown and Mark Ford. Next time, we'll discuss abstract games. We want and encourage your questions, comments, and feedback. Please call 916-426-2873 and leave us a short voicemail, or send an email to feedback@ourturnpodcast.com. Our theme music was composed by Adriana Crickle. Incidental music was provided by Ben Sound. Please check out our show notes to learn more about the composers featured in this episode. The material in this episode is copyrighted under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. If you want to learn more about the games discussed in this episode, please visit our website at ourturnpodcast.com/episode 47. You can find a list of the games along with links to their listing on BoardGameGeek.com. We are proud members of the Dice Tower Network. You can find out about other shows in the network like The Family Gamers, Board Game Blitz, or of course, The Dice Tower by going to dicetowernetwork.com. Thank you for your support. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends about us.
This week's official Cathy Mentions Firefly number is 4. If you had 4 in the pool, you may already be a winner.